Hey guys, today we're going to be talking about just some decks that have plays if you maxi them. So, we'll start with Blackwing. So, Blackwing is generally pretty efficient in how the main deck is, I guess. So, with our copies of Simoon and Sudri, we have a lot of options. So, if you guys do not know, I guess, Simoon does not actually special summon itself. So here, if you control no monsters and this card, you have this card in your hand, you can banish one other Blackwing monster from your hand, place one Black Whirlwind from your deck face up in your spell and trap zone, and either send this card to the graveyard or immediately after this effect resolves, normal summon it without attributing. For some reason, the normal summon is optional, you know, but anyways, it is still you just normal summoning a level 6 monster, essentially, and then we're also placing a Black Whirlwind from our deck. So we're going to be placing Black Whirlwind. So with this card, when a Blackwing monster is normal summoned to your field, you want to add one Blackwing monster for your deck to your hand with less attack than that monster. So if you max E right now, you would get 0 draws, right? So uh, if we if you max E before summon, 0 draws. Chain it to summon 0 draws. Okay, and then we'll trigger Black Whirlwind, and then this will allow us to add Sudri, who has less attack than our Simoon, so 1.4k. And now, if you were to maxi here, this is actually the probably best part or best point to actually activate your maxi, and the reasoning is because a lot of the Blackwings are actually inherent summons that require you to control a Blackwing monster, and if you did it too early, I don't think Gamma is like played, right? Is it? But we could technically Gamma you if you were to try to do it in Chain to Simoon or before Simoon, but we can't make we can't make side frame gear Gamma, I guess. We would have to make something else, and then we wouldn't be able to use Simoon if it was in our hand. So it becomes pretty dicey. So you probably won't see Gamma if you're playing against Blackwing, but I mean, uh, I can't guarantee there isn't anyone psychopath enough to find a line to do with this. Maybe they link it off or something for something. I guess maybe you link it off for like Super Producer or something and then pop itself. Like, it would be giga dumb and then go like activate Simoon or something. I'm not sure the requirements on Super Producer. I'm just assuming it's Fiends. But it does in fact pop itself and then have an optional add effect. So technically that might be able to just I guess off itself. But anyways, now if we have Sudri in hand, we can just normal summon Sudri, and then at this point, uh, the optimal point to max E for the most amount of draws is kind of just over, right? So if you max E in chain to normal summon Sudri, then at around this point, this would be where we can add Vata, and we would have to kind of combo. So if you maxi at this point, this is honestly, in my opinion, a bad point to maxi. So the best point to start maxing is either right before Vata, like you see your opponent physically search the Vata. It's pretty important to see this because if you do it before I search with Black Whirlwind and Sudri, then I can simply just do add Sudri adds Blackbird Close and add Chinook. So what I end on here does not seem that impressive, but it is going to be Blackbird Close, which is a on field, unfortunately on field, but on field monster negate, which then allows me to float into essentially the Blackwing Dragon, and then if I have Chinook in my hand, right, which I will have searched off of the Black Whirlwind, which will send itself to the graveyard next turn, so you don't have to worry about that, I guess. But next thing here is that I'll be able to use Chinook as a monster negate, and the amount of draws you gotta keep in mind you get off of Maxi, 0, because I've only performed 2 normal summons and then pass turn, and that's what you will end up having to deal with if you Maxi before I resolve my searches, essentially. if you do your searches, or if I am allowed to do my searches, then you better hope, like, just pray, essentially, that you get exactly what you need to stop this, because once Vata resolves, you're probably fine to full combo, and it's not very stoppable. So now you're just worried about if your inboard is good enough against like any potential board breakers as the Blackwing player in this case, so you're probably fine if they resolve as well. A Maxx after this point, so if we can special summon Vata, and then our opponent does not immediately have Ash Blossom Joe Spring here, we still have combo. If they have Ash Blossom Joe Spring, we still have combo. It's pretty messed up, I guess. Whenever we get Vata onto the field, it's probably GG. In terms of like what we can do, the minimum setup that we can do to still have interaction at this point is to, I believe, activate the effect of not Vata. I think we skip Vata and just go straight into Borea Storm, and then we can go Borea Storm to send, and I think we just send the Sharnga, and then we use the effect of Shamal to add back Chinook, and then we make Draco Berserker, which is going to be two or three special summons. So you'll have to deal with. Well, actually, wait. No, we don't send Sharnga, right? Because if we send Sharnga, it doesn't do anything. So actually, no, we can just straight up make the Draco Berserker instead. So that is actually going to be one special summon, I think, and then what does this trigger from? Blackwing Synchro Monster or Blackwing Dragon and Special Summon to field. Okay, so that's why we would want to do that. To add the Chinook back, right? So yeah, it's going to be like 2 interactions then that we can manage in like 2 to 3 special summons, more or less, yeah. And if we were to add back a card, I think we're supposed to actually add back the Sutri for follow-up next turn, because that's better, because we can't actually activate Chinook the next turn. Or, I mean, yeah, the next turn on turn 2, because we won't be controlling a... Wait. No, it's Sharnga. That can't activate, right? We can still activate the Chinook, actually. So, small amount of confusion, but yeah. I think what you're supposed to send might be like potentially another Shamal, and then going like into Blackwing Full Armor Master, or potentially the Burn card. I think those are both like options. If we go Full Armor Master, we sit on a towers, and then we have a pop and monster negate. That's what we end on, right? There are actually a few options, I guess, so pretty neat. Yeah. Not that many summons though, so should probably be fine. Kind of depends if our opponent has an easy way to immediately out the like a Full Armor Master, or to deal with the burn effect of the Blackwing Assault Dragon. So that is essentially just how Blackwing will play against a Maxx, and they have options. We'll put it that way. If you're trying to get optimal Maxx draws, there's a punish for it, so you gotta be a little bit careful with that, I suppose. Knowledge helps, I suppose, so there we go. So that is Blackwing, and we'll move on to Kushtira. So with Kushtira, you have a line that plays around Nib and somewhat Maxx, so if we start with Kushtira Unicorn, we're going to special summon Unicorn here, right? And then when we activate Kushtira Theosis, if you chain Maxx to this, it means several things. So the first thing, you cannot activate Ash Blossom here, technically, with the Maxx. I mean, you could, but it's stupid, right? Because you won't get the draw, and you're going essentially -2 here. So if the Theosis resolves, we can Fen right here. So you need Ash Blossom right here. And then if you don't have Ash Blossom, we can make a Rysar. If you do have Ash Blossom, it's still going to be Unicorn Fenrir, assuming we draw the Ash Blossom immediately off of the Maxx. If we Maxx immediately after Unicorn, or if we Ash this, then you get no draws of Maxi, and it's just going to rot in your hand. Essentially, it's not going to do much. So, Maxi, already not looking that great against Cash, right? Assuming you are going second into Cash and you have Maxi, right? The best point for you to technically kind of Maxi against Cash is during like the draw phase. So you could do that, but it risks playing into Gamma, and then you just get hand looped for 2 as well. So special summon Gamma, the Maxi does not resolve, your opponent gets Gamma, goes Omega, and then hand loop with Omega, and then yeah, you don't have anything to really do here afterwards, so I guess you're in pain. So if we then go Fenrir to add Rysart, assuming we resolve the Theosis, our opponent will get 1 draw off of Special Summon Fenrir. Assuming our opponent only has the Maxi here, then we can normal summon Rysart. So that is so far only 1 draw, so they have gone even. And then we can summon the Rysart straight up after resolving Rysart. And then that allows us to go into a Rysart. And here I think the best card for you to banish is probably still Big Bang, I think. If you want to try for some follow-up, I guess you can do Theosis. So there's different reasoning behind both of these, but also let's real quick count the summons. So it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 4th summon a Rysart, so that plays around Nib. And then also special summons, 1, 2, 2 special summons, so our opponent will only be on 7 cards for the next turn, instead of, I guess, if they did it in draw phase and it pays off 8 cards in hand. So now you just need an out to Rysart, and that out is probably going to be infinite impermanence and then not much else. So if you have imperm, GG. If you do not, you lose. But also, since we just resolved only Unicorn, you know, still have 4 more cards in hand to deal with like whatever shenanigans you're doing here, right? So a lot of the time, this is enough to just be GG. And of course, there is like the throw of if you imperm the Kashira Unicorn and then your opponent actually has the Theosis already, then Theosis summon Fenrir, and then you don't draw into another imperm, then you have no way to negate a Rysart. So that's also potential just loss right there. And yeah, this plays around Maxi pretty well. It does not give your opponent like too many draws. It's not going to like be super overwhelming. Of course, we also have Branded. So let's assume we open Branded Fusion, or perhaps we normal summon Aluber and then we activate Branded Fusion. It is likely that Maxi will be enchained to Branded Fusion, and it's pretty simple. Just we activate Branded Fusion, we summon Lubellion, or we summon Albion, whichever one. Then we just special summon Mirror Jade, and that will be 2 summons. And then if we were to specifically go with the Aluber line, then we can banish the Aluber with the Mirror Jade, set Branded in red, and then we can next turn do some shenanigans, I guess, right? There's also the trap that allows you to fusion summon using your opponent's monsters. So we have Branded Banishment here, which would allow us to also special summon back the Mirror Jade if it's in the graveyard. I believe that's how this line works. And this is essentially just 2 special summons, and then you just have to face off against Mirror Jade, and then all the hand traps Branded has to, well, that Branded is playing, whatever those hand traps are. So just whatever, you know, it's going to just be like 6-7 cards in hand. If we really want to play around Maxi, we can even do like Branded Opening to add Aluber to hand and then normal summon Aluber instead of special summoning it, to just play around Maxi a little bit more, right? So we have all of those options, and then we're going to move on to Punk. Punk actually does have a decent line to do, believe it or not. So we have Xiamen, right? And then Xiamen adds Foxy Tune. So the first point where you can Maxi is when we are resolving Foxy Tune and we do not choose what we our special summoning during like the chain, so we can choose after you chain Maxi, right? So pretty simple answer here. So we just do Foxy Tune to special summon the Madame Spider, and then Madame Spider will be able to add us a Punk Trap. So not the best line, not the worst line, but our opponent just goes even, and then we grab either the Nashiwari Surprise to do a pop, or we can do a Jaruri Punk Dangerous Gabu to negate our opponent's monster. If we wanted to do a little bit more, there are like plays to do, well, essentially a little bit more. So instead, we can still proceed to go into Rising Carb, and then summon uh, back the Shirakusai, and also have a copy of, I believe it's Jam Dragon Drive on the field, and this allows for more follow-up, I guess. Let's count the interactions we actually get for the amount of summons we do, right? So special summon 1, special summon, this will be special summon, so special summon 2, special summon 3, this counts as 1 summon because it happens at the same time. So you'll summon this, plus probably the spider, so that's 1 interaction on the 3rd summon, and then we can do summon Gem Dragon Drive to add Ghost Ogre, so that's interaction number 2, and then we can special summon back the Shirakusai, and this will be interaction number 3, going into the Amazing Dragon. So we have the trap, hand trap, and then we have bounce everything. And how many summons was this? Let's count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 summons. I mean, not the worst, not the best, but we can also settle just for the 1. And you have a lot of easy ways to access follow-up because you just like so many 1-card starters in Punk. You're probably okay passing, and you might have some hand traps just in general, so you're vibing. If we specifically open Punk Jam Extreme Session, the funny thing is, we probably end up drawing more times than our opponent will. Off of Maxi, they'll only be drawing 1 off of the Foxy Tune effect to special summon the Madame Spider, and we'll draw once off of the Xiamen and then once off of the Madame Spider. So, draw 2. And you're probably chilling, I guess, right? So, yeah. A lot of decks, surprisingly enough, have some form of play against Maxi. It might not be best play, but you do have some options, aside from just raw passing. And interestingly enough, a lot of the more meta decks, like that you might see on Master Duel Meta, like on that tier list, they don't have very good lines in general against Maxi. So thought that was worth mentioning. And just for example, in Kashtira, a thing you can do is just not play Called by the Grave, because you don't give that many summons off of the Maxi that you don't have to actually, surprisingly enough. If you really don't want to, you don't have to play either Ash Blossom Joyous Spring or Called by the Grave in Kashtira. So you're actually fine in that regard. And we can instead play like Board Breakers, Floodgates, and other hand traps. You have those options, so yeah. It just kind of works out for you, I suppose. And yeah. Are there any other decks worth mentioning? I mean, let's see. I think I can come up with on the spot. Well, Vanquish Soul summons like also a very low amount of times, honestly. So if we do this, normal summon Rosin, and then our opponent chains Maxi. Assuming we go into Rock of the Vanquisher, we can just not go into Rock of the Vanquisher. And instead, depending on exactly what happens, we can in-chain to Rosin. We can then chain like Heavy Borger, and then get a draw. And even if we do summon the Rock of the Vanquisher, Maxi here is only going to be an upstart, and we can just do this and then add back the Rosin to our hand. as well. Depends exactly how things go, though, I suppose. But yeah, Vanquish Soul also doesn't give out that many draws up. If you really wanted to, you could just not play Called By in some of these lists because they have decent, like, I mean Called By or Ash Blossom because they have decent-ish lines to deal with Maxi, and it's just an option, I suppose, right? Well, it's not something you would necessarily be able to play very well against, like, every deck with, but it is just fine in general, right? The worst thing that could happen, I guess, with Vanquish Soul is if you have to start Stake Your Soul to summon Rosin, then you actually have to link off of Rock, and then your opponent goes +1. How unfortunate, right? But then anyways, next turn, you still have a lot of options to kind of use against your opponent here. Depending on exactly what you open, I suppose. You run a lot of hand traps, and the Rosin can in general do some work when you summon it off of Rock the next turn. So that'll be pretty glorious, I suppose. I think you can probably end up drawing more if you maxi turn 2 than turn 1, depending on exactly what your opponent has. But I mean, worst case scenario for your opponent, if you're playing Vanquish Soul, we're going to special summon Fenrir, and then Fenrir add Riseheart, normal summon Rosin, and then we're going to Rosin effect to add Xiaolong, and then if our opponent here does, let's see, if they do Maxi, at this point, if we have the Borger already, we can tag out for Borger, and then I believe we can not do much with Borger unless we have another Dark at this point, but then special summon Xiaolong, I guess, if they do it in chain to special summon Xiaolong, I believe that's what it was, right? Yeah. So it'll be activate Rosin effect to make it indestructible, chain Maxi as chain 2 to Xiaolong, then we don't even need to tag out, right, actually? And that'll be the first special summon we do that our opponent can actually respond to, right? So non-inherent. It will be Xiaolong, right? Assuming we have normal summoned the Rosin here, after we've Fenrir special summoned, then we can, if we have the Borger, the thing about Borger is that we can put the Rosin into our hand and chain to Maxi, and they don't get the draw off of that. If not, we just do Rock of the Vanquisher, link off the Rosin, add that to the hand, and then we do Xiaolong to add the Snow Devil. And then next turn, we can special summon Rosin, and we can add both Borger and the Caesar Valius, and this is overall going to only be 2 special summons. So, 1 off of Xiaolong and then 1 off of Rock, and I believe the amount of summons we did here is going to be precisely 4, which plays around Nibiru as well. So, yeah, that plays around Nibiru and Maxi, despite us also special summoning Fenrir here. If our opponent has sees rates off first, maybe that line would not be as good, but I mean, when Fenrir was at 2, this line was just a lot better, I suppose, right? So yeah, that's just 1 draw usually if you're playing well overall, right? In terms of card advantage, our opponent just goes +1 off of Maxi, and that's it. So Vanquish Soul does pretty well against Maxi in all those regards. So maybe these are some decks you could consider playing if you're really just feeling hateful or spiteful against Maxi. I mean, a +1 certainly is something, but if we think about it from a different perspective, right? If we run Ash Blossom Joe Spring going first, and then we also have our Called by the Grave, this is a 5-card investment in our main deck. We're pretty likely to open these guys, right? So, assuming we are running these cards for specifically going first if we get Maxied, that is going to be my assumption, right? So, with Ash Blossom, at least, you're running this as an attribute for Vanquish Soul, but not that important. So instead of running Ash Blossom Joe Spring, we could literally be running, for example, instead 3 copies of Macro, and this is just game ending. So our opponent, let's assume they do resolve Max E, they get like 2 draws, whatever, right? And then we just flip over Macro Cosmos, and they better have drawn Duster in one of those 2 draws they just got to do off of Max E, right? If not, GG. That's how some of these decks can potentially play, right? And if not Macro, there are other cards we could potentially run. Aside from Macro, just to show off a few, you know? We can run as well Deck Lockdown. Then, well, this is definitely not usable in Vanquish Soul, but if we activate this, our opponent is not going to be able to activate anything, and then they'll just, well, or resolve like anything. So all of the Snake Eye cards do not play around Deck Lockdown, we'll put it that way. If they have access into SP, maybe they have like an option to remove just the lockdown, and then they'll still have to deal with whatever end board you have on top of this, right? So yeah, these are all things. And of course, for specifically Vanquish Soul, we can run There Can Be Only One. So we can Deekaboo our opponent instead of running these. We can throw in like some other floodgates like Summon Limit, Anti-Spell, and overall, going first power, these are obviously going to be way higher than like Called By or Ash Blossom Joe Spring. Just winning you the game on the spot, and your opponent not being able to draw much off of Maxi, they don't get that much mileage. So these are all things you can consider whilst deck building. So yeah, that's all I got for you guys today, and hopefully this has been a little bit insightful in what you can do against Maxi if it does resolve. There are decks with options, and if your deck just didn't have an option, I mean that's kind of on you for just picking up the deck and playing it like that, I guess, right? So just for example, actually yeah, we'll throw in one more, right? So DD, you have a pretty simple line here. So we're going to assume we have started with Kepler, so Kepler effect adds gate. So then we do gate effect to add Griffin. And let's see if we can find a gate. Where is the gate? Dark contract with the gate. Here it is. So we add this, special summon Griffin. Our opponent will then Maxius. So that's 1 draw off of Griffin. We can then do our copy of Gilgamesh. So we'll go Gilgamesh next. And then we can set scales. So we're going to set our DD scales. In this case, I think the best ones we can do are probably Thomas with Orthros. And I can explain the reasoning on that later, but okay. We'll do this, and then we can grab, well, not grab, we can then XYZ on top of our Gilgamesh with a DS Machinex. So we'll do this, and this is special summon 1, 2, 3. So our opponent gets to draw 3 times. They go essentially +2 here, which is a little bit unfortunate, but how many interactions do we have with just the DS Machinex? So this will be a bit hard to break through. So this is the 3k guy, of course, which could be helpful or not helpful, depends on the situation exactly. But first thing we're going to do is we're going to suck up one of our opponent's cards. We'll destroy the Dark Contract with the gate first, and we get to attach one of our opponent's monsters to our DS Machinex, and then we can do that one more time for 2 interactions. And then it's just the 3k guy afterwards. So that's just fine, I guess. But we have a few options, I guess, here. But the thing we're going to mostly care about here is Then what do we have for the next turn after this play? So with this play in particular, well, I guess I didn't mention it for the Blackwing. So we'll go to back to Blackwing for a second. Uh, if we do Chinook, like the play with Blackwing with Chinook and close, the following turn, assuming even if we have no follow-up, we can make the Blackwinged Assault Dragon. So we can just do this the next turn because we can send the Borea Storm off of the effect of the Chinook, and then we have the Blackwing Dragon that we summoned off of the trap. So forgot to mention that. For follow-up for this though, in particular, we have the scales chosen for a reason. We have Thomas and Orthros. So with Orthros, we're going to add back the Kepler, which is a 1-card combo. We can just do this before the end of our turn. And then during the next turn, we can add Griffin back to the hand as well. So no real harm done if our back row is removed either. We're just chilling. But okay, so these scales are not like the best necessarily, but they get the job done, I guess. But we don't need to keep these scales, so now we'll have a few more options. So we can use, potentially, depending on how we're feeling, we can use Kepler as a high scale. We can use the DS Machinax as a scale as well, depending on what exactly happens. But basic idea, assuming not much happens and our opponent cannot play through DS at all. Then what we can do is we can use the Thomas effect to add the Griffin to our hand, so our hand will consist of, before we account for like the cards we draw into or the cards we already have, we will have Kepler and Griffin again, and then we can do Orthros effect to pop Orthros and Thomas. And also worth mentioning is this effect is actually just soft once per turn, so we can still use Orthros if we play more than one to pop our opponent's spell and trap cards. But okay. Next thing here, I mean, well, you might not understand why we're popping with Orthros, our own cards. It's because we can actually just use Gilgamesh again this turn, and Gilgamesh requires us to place exactly 2 DD pendulum monsters with different names from our deck in our pendulum zone. So if we clear out both zones, we can Gilgamesh again, and that allows us to potentially go into our second DS Machinax and then go full combo, or potentially find lethal, which we can potentially fish for as well. So that's what we can do if our opponent Maxx us. If we don't get Maxx, of course, it's just full combo, right? And full combo consists of essentially, in this case, I guess for the 1 card, not this 1 card, I believe, right? But for 1 card, we can end on DS Machinax, and then we have Dark Contract with the Gate, usually alongside Dark Contract with the Swamp King. So this one, so that is going to be 1, 2, and then we pop this as well, 3, 4. I think it's like 4 sucks off of DS Machinax, so that's 4 interactions off of just that by itself. And then you also have Wave King Caesar, which negates 2 of your opponent's monsters, or not monsters, stops your opponent from special summoning monsters twice, essentially is what this will do. And then after that, we still have 1 more thing, I think. Depending on exactly how you did the combo, then you might also have Headhunt. So, oh, I don't know why this shows up still, but okay. We can Headhunt, oh, it's 1 word. Headhunt, and then we have this monster negate as well, and it's also effectively a Snatch Steal. So we have this as well, depending on exactly what we do. On the strongest side of the board, we can have Baron alongside all of these other things, and then that's becomes like pretty brutal to overcome. But yeah, essentially we can do a lot with DD if our combo resolves, right? If not, we still have like a backup play if we get Maxx. So not the best plan, but it's certainly not the worst, right? we have follow-up for next turn if our stuff survives, and we have a good amount of interactions for our opponent, considering this is a one-card combo. I mean, best case scenario in this case, assuming like because Maxi resolved, we just have other hand traps of value and things like imperm called by we wouldn't have, I guess. But yeah, we might have like imperms, effect failures, whatever, ghost spells, ghost ogres, whatever hand trap you run, maybe DD Crow. Well, whatever the case, you're probably not going to be in the worst situation if Maxi resolves, right? So yeah, that's all I got for you guys today, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.